Yet another noteworthy year. 2023 followed up on 22 surprises and shocking moments to give us what was probably the best year in a while. Now, heading into it, I had certain expectations that most definitely did not be met, but at the same time, some stuff that I didn't even expect happened. So it balances out. January was the road to WrestleMania. Alexa Bliss had a short push that involved her being stalked by The Fiend. She was going crazy, but it went nowhere and she disappeared shortly afterwards. Bray Wyatt had a feud with LA Knight that really opened him up for the fans. Knight was starting to get some heat and momentum behind him from this very feud, and because Wyatt usually spoke on the mic, this involved multiple segments. It worked very well for Knight, but unfortunately though, their match at the Royal Rumble was actually Wyatt's final match. We didn't know at the time, and it's strange going back to it. He was supposed to feud with Bobby Lashley and possibly Brock Lesnar. Lesnar turned it down, but Wyatt came down with an illness at the time and nobody knew about it. The Royal Rumble started all kinds of feuds. Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley was reignited, with those two looking to make good on their previous matches. Seth Rollins and Logan Paul, and of course Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn with one of the best face turns in recent memory. Zayn finally stood up for Owens and was defiant against the Bloodline. It was an amazing moment and probably the very best to come from the year. And then of course you have Cody Rhodes' return and win the Royal Rumble on the men's side, and Rhea Ripley on the women's side. There was a lot of noteworthy things to come from the show. Asuka becoming her old character from Stardom again, and becoming more aggressive as one. Chelsea Green debuted. There was a lot of noteworthy stuff. It wasn't the best Royal Rumble event, but there was a lot of good. February was Elimination Chamber time. The Chamber matches were good, especially the men's match. I kind of forgot how good that one was. Brock and Lashley was a bit disappointing. Well, not a bit. It was actually very disappointing. I thought there was more they could have done, and they didn't even have a blow-off match. The feud just ended there, and Lashley was left off the WrestleMania card. And the main event with Sami Zayn was iconic. Zayn had turned into that babyface everyone hoped and wished he would. A scrappy underdog fighting for a cause. This was the best match Sami Zayn had in a long time and had a vibe we didn't see often in WWE. It felt like there was a real chance Zayn would win, but he came up short. This led to KO and Zayn reuniting in a big-ass storyline. WrestleMania season, as always, was exciting. It provided a lot of hype. John Cena was back. He was cutting these Fury promos on Austin Theory, who didn't have much to show, and it's kind of sad because he was pushed hard and there came a point where his push hit a dead end. Then the match itself wasn't that good because John Cena didn't go all out, nor did Austin Theory make good on the moment or the match itself. It was a very strange one. Lesnar actually had a match with Omos. I completely forgot this happened. Bobby Lashley was left off the show, which was strange. I thought he belonged, and not just in some random match, but something big. The Damage Control storyline with Becky Lynch was still ongoing, but it started to include the likes of Trish Stratus and Lita. And WrestleMania itself was mixed. The first night was tremendous. Rey and Dominic's story had the perfect payoff, with Rey finally giving his son a beating. Rollins and Logan Paul had a good, exciting match. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte overperformed in a way I don't see often. Like, you might expect it to be good, but not that good. It was one of the best matches of the year, and they would have main evented if it wasn't for the Bloodline and Sami Zayn's storyline. That match in particular gave you a sense of fulfillment to see Zayn and KO main event WrestleMania. It's kind of crazy that I think that the Usos main evented a night as well with them. And again, I never would have thought that. I never would have thought these two would close out a part of WrestleMania. Night 2 though was a bit different. Gunther, Drew, and Sheamus put on a classic, a match that usually doesn't deliver on the biggest stage, but they had it all on this night. To many, as WWE's match of the year, and for good reason. Those three were aggressive, rough, and had fast-paced action. It was incredible and managed to match Clash at the Castle, because at the end of the day, they did everything they did there, here, except this time it was at WrestleMania, so it felt much bigger. This was the moment for Sheamus or Drew to win it, but WWE wanted to give Gunther a long title reign. After that, the show didn't match the quality of that one. Shane McMahon returned and got injured, which was the weirdest thing I've seen to come from this WrestleMania. And the main event in many ways did reach the quality of the previous matches, but that Hell in a Cell with Edge beating the Demon Finn Balor was odd. Edge's storyline had his reasons for winning, but looking at it from another perspective, this should have been Finn Balor's moment, because it's not often you have the chance to do something like this. And the main event was one of the best WWE matches of the year. Roman and Cody really delivered, but they tricked us with that ending. It seemed like Roman's run was coming to an end when they did the same thing. Solo Sikoa interfering and helping Roman retain that title. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that he actually retained the title, because it felt like Cody Rhodes was that guy that WWE wanted. A babyface that the kids could get behind. Somebody they haven't had since John Cena. And best of all, at this point, it was because Roman Reigns did everything he could with the title, and the Bloodline story didn't need it. It could have gone down without a title and still would have main evented every show. There was a point after WrestleMania where things were dry. Theory's push at this point was basically over. Roman wasn't around, meaning the world title wasn't around. And of course there was other things going down, LA Knight was getting over, the LWO formed, and Cody and Brock had a big storyline going on. That one wasn't loved initially because of WrestleMania. Cody was seen as someone that should have feuded with Brock with the title, for the title, and best of all, Bad Bunny was around. They had Backlash in Puerto Rico and it was amazing. Calm card, great vibes, and the atmosphere was one of the best in the entire year, especially during the Bad Bunny match. Backlash showed WWE should go international, put on shows because the fans are always interested. Great show, one of the best shows from the entire year. Trish Stratus turned heel for the first time in 18 years, and initially this had a lot of fire to it. She would go on and trash everybody and Becky Lynch. Even their match at Night of Champions was decent, but after Zoe Stark came in, things took a turn. She did close off this run with a great steel cage match though, I'm gonna say it right now. So even though the middle of it was the end of it was good. There was a point where WWE realized that they couldn't have one world title, and the situation itself didn't help with Roman Reigns retaining the title at WrestleMania, so they brought back the World Heavyweight Championship. This would have been fine, but it looked second rate since nobody beat Roman Reigns. Does it matter in the long run? Not really, because I'd rather have the title than see Roman holding one belt on both brands. Seth Rollins became the first champion, and it was well deserved for his work. Asuka finally won the Women's Championship, ending Bianca Belair's long-ass title reign. It was a decent match, but the big match in May was between the Bloodline and Zayn and KO. Electric main event with a big ending. It was some crazy stuff. Jimmy Uso breaking free and the Usos were finally out of the bloodline. Great moment. And there was a lot of great moments throughout the year, but that was one of my favorites. The Judgment Day was getting more interesting on Raw with Dominic hitting his stride, and the Cody and Brock feud was put on hold for a moment. It was about hyping up their match at SummerSlam after Rhodes passed out at Night of Champions. The world title was a fresh addition to the branding and gave the big wrestlers something to fight for as opposed to previously. The weakest part of the shows were the Women's Tag Team Championships. They were directionless with them. One moment Lita and Becky held them. The next, Raquel and Liv were champions, and any time you saw a title defense, it felt like nothing. They were fighting for the most forgettable titles. The Bloodline story was getting more intense, and this led to a strong Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Almost everything clicked with the show. LA Knight had a great reception, was truly one of the most popular wrestlers. It came up short to Damian Priest in the Money in the Bank ladder match, but it was a nice match. The Women's Money in the Bank had a surprise involving Io Sky winning it, and it was yet another time where WWE was pushing fresh talent. The women's division desperately needed new faces at the top because you can't rely on Charlotte, Becky, and Bianca. John Cena returned for a moment, which was very cool, and was talking about WrestleMania being in the UK, and the main event finally saw Roman Reigns lose a match. There was a lot of energy with that one, and Jey Uso for a moment looked like $1,000,000. He still does, but to have him beat Roman Reigns, a man who hadn't been pinned in 4 years, was amazing. Drew McIntyre returned to feud with Gunther, and at this point, Gunther was the man to watch. His performances always stood out and had great storytelling. A man of honor who sees the squared circle as sacred. Oh, and there was some random heel turn by Shayna Baszler. She randomly turned on Ronda Rousey, starting a feud with her, and they had one of the most forgettable matches at SummerSlam, which did nothing for Shayna. It should have been a bigger deal for her to beat Ronda Rousey, but her stock was low at this point, so it didn't really matter. SummerSlam as a whole had a little disappointment to it. I delusionally thought Randy Orton would return, but that's not the reason I thought it was underwhelming. Logan Paul and Ricochet delivered. It could have been even better, but I'm sure Logan's circumstances prevented that. Drew and Gunther was good, solid match. It wasn't a classic, but it'd be crazy to expect every match to be that. Cody Rhodes won the feud with Brock in a match that showcased his ability to look like a wounded superhero, and it was basically Lesnar trying to test out Cody to see if he's ready to go for a shot at the top again. They never said it was, but that's what it looked like from my perspective. Seth Rollins and Finn Balor stole the show, and I was convinced Balor would win it. It made too much sense with the story. They probably learned Tom Hem's his favorite team because with all the opportunities, he still bottled it. Bianca won the women's title only for Io Sky to cash in. It was yet another short women's run with a briefcase, but Io's doing well with the title to this very day, and it was a cool moment to see her actually win the title. Even Dakota Kai returned for this moment. And the main event was so disappointing. Tribal rules, yet there was interference, and the match itself wasn't all that. To top it all off, Jimmy Uso turned on his brother and rejoined the Bloodline. It was so strange for him to go back to having Roman win the way he does and having Jimmy rejoin the group, but it worked out well for Jey, who despite quitting ended up joining Raw a month later and is doing very well. Post SummerSlam saw significant pushes for the likes of Chad Gable, Shinsuke Nakamura, and LA Knight. In Gable's case, he's finally had that freedom to show his personality, and coupled with his wrestling ability, it makes for a strong combo. He had an incredible series of matches with Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, and it's clear they're interested in pushing him over the next year. Nakamura was pushed as a title challenger, turning heel and having some amazing vignettes, and he was basically a cold but clinical mercenary. Of course, it didn't lead to a title because it's Shinsuke Nakamura, but I thought for the short time he was in the main event scene, it was nice. LA Knight's push though was the strongest. His charisma coupled with his funny and intense promos made him a fan favorite, and it was simply placing him on TV. He benefited a lot from the Bray Wyatt feud and was tested with a miss. He passed that test and went even higher, facing the Tribal Chief in a good main event. Knight obviously wasn't experienced at the main event level in WWE, so there was some doubts that he could have a good 20-minute match, but that went well. Unfortunately, around this time, Bray Wyatt passed away. This stunned the entire wrestling community, as only a couple of days earlier, it was rumored he was returning. Wyatt was going through a lot of problems when nobody knew. He's had a strong career and his impact was definitely felt. WWE merged with UFC under TKO, so WWE was now under TKO, which was under Endeavor. Change was expecting to have a lot of effects on WWE itself, and it did. A bunch of wrestlers were released, including the likes of Dolph Ziggler, Emma, Shelton Benjamin, and Dolph Ziggler shocked me because of his long tenure and value. Matt Riddle was another because he had too much drama around him, and it wasn't a matter of cutting costs when it came to him. Vince McMahon basically sold WWE to find a way back in. He's not entirely out because he had the majority shares, but Endeavor clearly don't want his image front and center. So it's basically like things got worse for him. John Cena returned for 2 months, and it was much needed because things were getting dry. After WrestleMania, there was a bunch of rematches between Zayn and KO and the Usos. Roman was away, Edge left the company after having his final match in Toronto, and there was a lack of a superstar name. They're bringing in new names from NXT such as Grayson Waller, and even made signings such as Jade Cargill and Nick Aldis, but up top, there wasn't much heat. And even though Cena didn't go all out, his presence was welcome. He put over Solo Sikoa and looked like a shell of himself, in storyline of course, a guy who was no longer the face that runs the place. The last 3 months of the year had so much going on, good and bad. Nia Jax returned, and immediately they made her one of the biggest parts of the women's division, a division that honestly hasn't been the best on Raw. Rhea's title reign is not all that, but as a talent, her star power has increased. Dominic Mysterio has turned his reputation around in every area, including in-ring. Drew McIntyre has a good story going on with him feeling he's justified in being angry and frustrated at everyone. On SmackDown, Austin Theory's push went down, leading to a partnership with Grayson Waller. Waller in particular is benefiting a lot from being featured on TV. And then there's other guys like Santos Escobar turning heel, Dragon Lee signing with WWE and being pushed on SmackDown. There's a lot going on, and a lot of it's been good, honestly. Like, a lot of that stuff has been nice. It's just WWE dragged a lot this year. They rely on these faction stories too much, and in the Judgment Day's case, their stories were constantly dragged for months. Jade Cargill's signing was a huge deal, something that nobody could have saw coming a few months earlier, and she hasn't debuted yet, but it's clear they have big plans for her. She's more suited for WWE than AEW. Kairi Sane returned to the company, and it's much different when compared to a previous WWE run. Logan Paul won the United States Championship. Carlito signed with the company, and the build to Survivor Series was filled with teases. The War Games match saw the Judgment Day face off every top babyface on Raw. There was problems with Jay, who was trying to make things right with everybody due to his past in the bloodline, and this led to Drew McIntyre joining the Judgment Day's team and turning heel. The final member of Cody's team turned out to be Randy Orton, and it had been a while since Orton was seen, about a year and a half. A very exciting return that added to WWE's strong babyface lineup on Raw, and right before the show ended, CM Punk returned to WWE for the first time in nearly 10 years. A monumental return that basically drove another level of momentum to WWE's product. Punk was teased a bit, but I didn't actually believe until I saw it. This man was back. Punk found an opening and used his drawing power in AEW to return. And that's WWE in 2023. I liked it more than 2022. My favorite moments were Logan Paul and Ricochet's dive at the Royal Rumble, Sami Zayn in general during this time period, Roman Reigns and Cody's promo before WrestleMania, Jay beating Roman, Io Sky cashing in the briefcase, and of course, CM Punk's return. There was issues as always. Talents such as Bobby Lashley, who still have something, were underutilized throughout the year. I didn't understand the whole pairing with the Street Profits. It's clearly underwhelming. The women's division wasn't that good in general, especially on Raw. Chelsea Green had done a good job earlier in the year as a character, but that's not enough to carry an entire division. Yeah, Becky Lynch had that time period towards the end of the year where she was wrestling often, having these good matches, but the women's division wasn't that good. On the other side, Gunther's had a very memorable title reign that's filled with great matches and some classics. The matches on TV have been better, and long-term storytelling has been important in building feuds with the likes of Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso. The rest of the year is a tough one. I'd say Gunther. Others like Roman and Cody didn't do enough for me to say it's them. Seth Rollins deserves a mention. My favorite throughout the year was Zayn. The face turn coupled with the bloodline feud has ignited something special in him. Women's wrestler is definitely Rhea Ripley. She has a star element to her, and even though her title reign hasn't been the best, she's always stood out throughout the year. And even though the bloodline story at times has been dragged, it's still WWE's best. Jey Uso's gotten a huge push from it and was one of the standouts of the year. Match of the year, I'd go with the tag team main event at WrestleMania. Sami Zayn KO versus the Usos. The story was fulfilled, the action was great, atmosphere was amazing. There was a lot of great matches to come from WrestleMania, it's just the way things went. And the second night felt underwhelming. So yeah. Alright, what do you guys think of WWE in 2023? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure to hit the crossroads on the like button, and perhaps the haluva kick on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.